My name is Renee Fenter, visionary leader of Vista Hub and the editor of Path to Purpose magazine. It's an absolute honor to interview Hollywood actor and producer Kevin Sorbo, best known for the iconic role as Hercules in Hercules, as well as his impactful performances in faith-based films like God's Not Dead and Let There Be Light. Today we have the opportunity to diving into his thoughts and discussing the entertainment industry with him and hearing about the latest projects. So, Mr. Kevin Sorbo, welcome. It's an honor to have this interview with you.
It's good to be here. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So, let us start with your career and faith journey. Hercules was a defining role in your career, but since then, you transitioned into faith-based films. So, what inspired this change, and how did it shape your path as a Christian for your career?
Well, I said really, it kind of happened back in 2010. In 2010, Dallas Jenkins approached me with a script. Many people I know Dallas. He's doing The Chosen for the last 5 years or so. And I read the script, and I said he just wanted my take on it if I thought it was a good script. Well, I loved the script, and I said, "Who's playing Pastor Ben in this movie?" And he named a couple of actors. I said, "No, I'm playing him." And he went and he said, "Well, I can't afford you." He said, but I said, I don't care. I said, this is one of the best scripts I've ever read. It's called What If? And I've done over 90 movies, and God's Not Dead being one of those. But I put What If in my top three favorites. I think What If is better than God's Not Dead, and I can say that without hurting the God's Not Dead writers' feelings because it's the same writers. It's here's the trouble with independent movies. The hard thing is, how do you, if you're shooting a movie worth $3 million, how do you get it out there when you're competing against Hollywood's $300 million movies and they have $100 million advertising budget? So how do you compete? God's Not Dead was an anomaly the way it exploded and took off, and it was all word of mouth. Well, like I said, What If I think is better, and I've always said that in every interview I've done about it. And what's interesting, Dallas just called me a couple of weeks ago, and he said we are going to reissue in the theaters the What If movie. So it's coming back out again and here in America in a couple months, which I'm very excited for. But that really got me on the road. That got me down the road to want to do more movies in that, because I've always been a Christian. So I've always wanted to do movies that weren't, they're not cheesy. There's cheesy movies in every genre, but I think the faith-based movie world over the last decade has really picked up and got much better.
Were there any moments in your life, personally or professionally, that solidified your faith to using this platform for God's glory?
There's a moment after God's Not Dead that a woman came up to me. We're in the Salt Lake City airport in Utah. And I was with my family. We're just on a ski trip. And she walked up to me and she said, "Are you Kevin Sorbo?" And I said, "Yes, I am." And I could tell by her accent she was somewhere from the Middle East. And she was about in the early 30s. She had a daughter, like 7 or 8 years old, with her. She said, "I am from Iraq. I saw the movie God's Not Dead. I grew up Muslim. I became a Christian because of your movie." And it was like she starts crying. My wife starts crying, makes me start crying. So we kind of prayed for her in there. And she said her and her little daughter just got baptized. And I realized the power, for good or bad, what movies can do. Walt Disney back in the 1950s said movies and television will influence our youth. Well, they certainly do. And you see this stuff coming out of Hollywood today, the last 10 years, this woke insanity and this movies filled with over sexualization and hate and anger and violence. And I'm going, you know what? I'm not telling Hollywood what movies they should make, but there's 80 million homes in America alone that want the kind of movies that I do, and yet Hollywood is just ignoring that, because their ideology is just weird to me. It's like, you're a capitalist business. Don't you want to take advantage of that? So I've been very fortunate to be in that world now for, I think, the last 15 years. I probably shot about 40 movies within that genre.
40 movies. Wow, that's incredible. So, for someone who worked in Hollywood and the faith based film industry, what challenges have you faced and how has your faith guided you through them?
Well, the challenge within Hollywood, the woke insanity started earlier than I think we think it did. I'm the first cancel culture victim and before it became a term, when my manager and agent a dozen years ago called me into the office, and after decades of working together said, "We can't work with you anymore." And I said, "What's going on?" "Well, because of stuff you post on the internet." And I go, "You mean I posted truth? Is that a problem?" And so They apparently don't like that, and they said it's going to be hard for us to get you in the door with all the studios. They don't want to work with you. And I thought, I go, that's such a childish.
Yeah.
I look at this insanity of this liberalism, this thing that is so woke and so angry and hateful to people that have a different point of view. I don't harbor that. If someone is an atheist, I don't attack them. If someone is a liberal, I don't attack them. So to me, it's like, why can't we just have a discussion about why I think this way and why you think that way? What's the big deal? And so to me, that really opened up the door to me saying, okay, I'm going to form Sorbo Studios. I hope everybody goes to sorbostudios.com, sign up. I've got 4 new movies coming out this year, 3 documentaries coming out. I've been very fortunate to stay very busy outside of Hollywood, and I love doing the movies I'm doing. So I don't miss that world. And I was never really a Hollywood guy to begin with. I grew up in a small town in the Midwest, so moving to LA, I kind of stayed on the fringe. I worked very hard at the craft, but I was never a Hollywood guy to go along with Hollywood things, so to speak.
That makes sense. So let's share more about your faith-based storytelling in a world flooded with secular entertainment. Faith-based movies often face criticism to be preachy or not realistic enough. So how do you go about it? How do you create stories to be impactful and relatable?
Well, I think a good movie to look at that is quality is a movie called The Blind Side with Sandra Bullock, because it was a type of movie that the message was there about this Christian family that takes in this African American kid, this black kid, into the family and help him. Um, and then there are people say, "Well, it's a good sports movie." Well, yeah, it was a good sports movie, but it's also a good movie with a positive message about hope and
Yeah.
about love and about redemption and things like that. So I think it's easy to say they're too hokey, they're too this, too that. But I really think the last, like I said, 10, 12 years, I think the quality of work coming out now, some movies are definitely preachy, but I think most of them are not anymore. I think there's just really good movies with positive messages instead of negative ones. So I think the independent producers are going to keep doing it, and I think Hollywood is starting to show signs of life that they want to get more involved in now, because I'm getting emails now from people in Hollywood that have done big budget movies. They've been on Avatar, they've been on Avengers, they've been on all these things. But I get called from these quality people on the other side of the camera saying, "I want to work with you." And I say, "I can't afford your salary." He said, "I don't care. I mean, you pay me the minimum, whatever. I want to do a movie that my kids will be proud of." That's what a lot of them are saying, which is pretty cool.
That's so true. I definitely think your movies are impactful because, as a family, when we search for faith based movies, your name is always one of our favorite searches. So, what do you believe makes faith based films a powerful tool in today's cultural climate?
You just said something right there that I realized this was my mission. This was my mission, where as Christians we're called to harvest. I know that sounds a little kind of weird at times, I guess, but I'm not there to beat people over the head. I'll talk to anybody about where my faith is and what I do. But I found the movies now that I'm doing speak for themselves, and through Sorbo Studios, the emails that come in are reinforcing that. They're just saying, "We love what you do. We love the messages you do." I'm involved with Kirk Cameron, and I do a lot of children's books as well through Brave Books, and they're moral based. They're fun for kids to read growing up. There's nothing preachy in them at all. It's just good stories with good messages, instead of just these all this hate and anger out there. So to me, I'm just going to keep fighting the good fight and doing what the road that God put me on.
That's so good to hear. So, if you could inspire one change in the faith based industry, what would it be and why?
Work together. I mean, there's a lot of egos within churches too. There's a lot of woke churches right now and woke pastors. I mean, it's crazy out there's going on. You know, I remind when I do speaking, I remind people of faith, certainly priests, pastors, rabbis, whatever. I say, you guys got to remember, you work for God. You don't work for government. You work for God. The only thing God and government have in common is the first 2 letters, G-O. After that, they're miles apart. And Thomas Jefferson, who's obviously part of the Declaration of Independence in America, he had a lot to do with the separation of church and state, saying the separation of church and state. Unfortunately, the liberals have switched the meaning. It's not in our Constitution, but he wrote it to keep government out of the church. And liberals in America, the Democrats, have switched that around to saying that, don't bring the government into the church or the other way around. But they don't want the Constitution. Our founding fathers were all men of faith, and they're all men that were believed. And when they went against the king in England during that time before the revolution, they knew they were committing treason, that their penalty was going to be death if this didn't happen. So it's an amazing story, and it was all because of their faith in God and the faith and the fight for independence from a very crazy government during the British Empire. And I laugh at it now because I say, guys, when are you going to wake up in America? Our governments today treat us worse than the British government did. I mean, we went to war after over a 2 or 3% tax on tea, basically. So our U.S. dollar is taxed to death for every dollar you spend. So I love the fact that Donald Trump is back in office because he's the businessman. I've known him for 20 years, and I remember telling him when I met him back in 2005. I said I wasn't talking about him, but I was saying I want a businessman to run America. I don't want a politician running it. I want somebody who knows how to run a business because every country, you are a business.
So let's touch on cultural challenges and the clash of civilization. What do you see as the great cultural challenge Christians face today, and how can we rise above it?
Well, we have a spiritual war going on. There's no question. Why are Christians attacked the way they're attacked? I don't get it. I mean, it's so bizarre to me. But in the Bible, Jesus said, "You follow me, and you're going to be attacked just like I am." And it's so bizarre that as a Christian, that all this anger and hate comes out. And so to me, that's the biggest change in our culture. That's what we got going on right now. And we have a cultural war as well. We got people in this country that want to change so much about America. We got people marching the streets now with this deportation. We had 20 million people illegally coming to America the last 4 years. I go, why are we not have more people fighting about this? I think apathy is one of the biggest killers in the world. I think people just go, oh, well, what can I do? It's like, just, wake up and fight back, and you fight for your country. Come legally. My grandparents came from Norway. They came in legally. They went through everything they had to go through to become citizens. What's the big deal? If I move to Italy, I'm not going to sit there and go, okay, you have to put everything in English now. Yes. I mean, they're marching the streets, waving their old country's flags. Well, then go back to your country.
Yeah.
you got your flag waving in America saying what? I mean, if you're from another country, be proud to be an American too. You can have your heritage, but you left that country for a reason. Yes. There's a lot of reasons why people left Mexico or Venezuela. Countries like that are being run by dictators and, total communism. So, if you want to be part of America, then be part of America and fight for that. Don't fight for the fact that you just want to be here and live off everybody's tax dollars, because these illegals are costing us billions of dollars in taxpayer money.
So for someone who has received a lot of backlash, what advice will you give to Christians to stand firm in their faith?
Don't let fear rule your life. Don't be afraid. Every government's favorite weapon is fear, and we saw every government rear their ugly head during COVID. And everything I said about COVID that were so-called conspiracy theories came true. Everything I was saying about mask wearing, 6 feet of separation, the shots, all that stuff that I was saying has now been proven true. And to me, it's, in Proverbs, it says the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. Well, you know what? That's the only person you're supposed to fear. You're not supposed to fear your government. You're not supposed to fear your fellow man. We need to fight back. We'll not be afraid. And I tell people all the time, I said, I believe Jesus was the person that walked the road less traveled first. The road less traveled, a very famous Robert Frost poem. And I think we all need to jump on that road along with Jesus and make that road less traveled into a super highway. That's what we got to do. I did a movie recently, and this girl she came in to do 2 scenes. There's a true story coming out later this year. It's called Another Life. It's a wonderful true story about this gentleman that I got to play. I got to meet him. He's in his 80s now. And there's a scene I did with this girl. She came in to do 2 scenes with me. She played a waitress in a little diner. And I asked her during the break, they're setting up lights. I said, so your last year at college at the University of Virginia, what are you studying? She said, gender studies. And I started to laugh. And she looked at me and I said, oh, you're serious? I go, are you telling me that University of Virginia has a major in gender studies? And I said, sweetheart, what are you going to do with that? I mean, because I could have saved your parents $200,000. Here you go. Male, female. You just graduated. Congratulations.
Exactly.
So in this next section, I'd like to talk about a topic dear to your heart, pro-life advocacy. Abortion is one of the most polarized issues today. What is your view on this?
It's life. I mean, the Bible talks about the pressure. I know that God, he knows you when in the womb. He knows everything about you and what your life's going to be. And we're murdering people, and we're murdering them. It's murder. I do a lot of pro-life speaking. There's no other way to say it. I've seen firsthand. I've seen the video of real abortions, and it's unbelievable how the baby tries to protect itself while the doctors are ripping limbs off. It's horrific, and we need to show videos like this to all these junior high and high school kids and college students because they need to wake up. Because we've had 3 generations of just normalizing murder. Yeah. Mother Teresa was just fought against that forever, saying, "Bring all the children to me." I mean, it's crazy what we're doing, and I'm not afraid to stand up and speak about it because we got to battle with that as well. And you got people that when they have these pro-life, these pro-choice people that march down in Washington, D.C. every year. They have a day they do this or 2 days, and they're just angry. Then you look at the pro-life marches in Washington, D.C. These people are holding hands, locking arms, singing songs. When they leave, they leave it cleaner than it was. The pro-choice people, I go, what is your choice? The choice is life or death. And this my body, my choice? No, it's not your body. If it was your body, you'd be dead. It's as simple as that. You're the host of that body, but that body has a different DNA, different fingerprints, different blood type. It's not your body. And for people to use it as a birth control method, it's pretty bad. It's pretty sad. And every election, every 2 years, the elections we have in America, it is one of the top 2 issues that the left fights for. I want the right to be able to kill human life. It's child sacrifice, and it's really sickening that the world is doing this. In China, I have a wonderful script called Pearls for China. I wish I could make it. I wish we could get the money to do it. They have had over 500 million. Think about that, 500 million forced abortions in China.
Oh my goodness, 500 million.
500 million. That's 160 million more than we have here in America. People living in this country right now. I think the comfort we can all take is those babies that were aborted. We will all meet them one day, which is pretty cool.
So what role do you think that churches and Christians can play?
I think churches, what I mentioned earlier, number one, churches got to start working together instead of this egos. I mean, they got their own egos and they don't want to work together, which is just weird to me. I've been involved in a couple speaking events at churches where, they hold 10,000 people and there's only 500 people there. And I would talk to the people that are running the church. I'm going, didn't you broadcast this that we'd all be here? Speaking. Oh no, we don't put that. This isn't our event. We just let them borrow our space. We charge them to use the space for their event. And I said, but it's a Christian event that we're speaking here. You got Christian speakers here. We're in a church. You get 10,000 people. You should have said every Sunday for the 5 months leading up to it. By the way, boom, check this out. This is going to be happening. And they don't even promote it because it's not ours. And I'm going, this is the problem. And it's sad that they aren't working together. And we need these churches to promote independent movies. I mean, I'm happy to send every one of my movies to every religious leader around the world and say, you view the movie with your family. And then if you would support it, we'd be grateful, and get it in front of your congregation and say, hey, this Friday, this movie opens up. Fill up those seats, because independent movies, if you don't have a big opening weekend, they pull it off. Theater owners don't care what they show. They want to sell popcorn and sodas. So they'll show the monster movie and the scary movie and the violent movie and the sexual movie. But God's Not Dead broke the mold when people said, I want to see that movie, and everybody went. And it stayed in theaters for like 4 months before going to streaming. So we need churches to work together and work with independent producers like myself and promote the movies.
So what do you hope your legacy would be, both as an actor and follower of Christ?
I think that the nicest thing is one of the things you just said, that your son said, that they look for Kevin Sorbo movies. I take that as a huge compliment. So to me, it's like that just shows, it just reinforces that I'm on the right road of what I'm doing.
What future projects are you busy with and most excited about?
I've got a couple documentaries coming out this year, and Ingenuity Films. They're the ones who redid Against the Tide, now Against the World. I did one with them a couple years ago called Before the Wrath. Deals with the second coming. And Before the Wrath is a look at the eyes of scholars and pastors and priests and rabbis and all those people interconnected with. We actually had actors playing the roles of the 2,000 years ago,
Sure.
and then going back and forth, talking about what it will be like through the Bible, their definition and interpretation of the Bible, when the second coming happens. And that was the number one documentary for about 5 months on Amazon. It's a wonderful documentary. Well, the latest one I have coming out with them deals with the Last Supper. And I love the title they gave. It's called Sleeping with the Enemy. And that's coming out over Easter. It'll be out about a month before Easter happens. And then I have another documentary where I spent 3 weeks in Israel tracing the flow of the Ark of the Covenant through archaeological digs. And we shot that just before the war broke out. And they're talking now about making a 5-part miniseries out of it because we got a lot of coverage. So I was really Indiana Jones because we were there at these archaeological digs talking to these people. And this one's called The Quest for the Throne of God. And I'm looking forward to that coming out as well. I think it's going to be wonderful. I love these documentaries. I think they're very educational. And I mean, when I'm on airplanes now, that's what I watch a lot of now. And it's just fun to look at these movies that these different people have these points of views on these different parts of life. I've got another script we're trying to raise money for right now, dealing with the shroud, and I'm hoping we make this movie for people as well. And I've got a couple of wonderful movies coming out next year. One is called Another Life, which I mentioned to you already, and there's 2 secular movies, but they're both comedies, and it was just a lot of fun for me to do them. It was just a lot of fun. They're good family movies. I've got a year and a half ago, 2 movies came out that I directed. There's one right here, Left Behind: Rise of the Antichrist, based on the Left Behind books.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I had, what was the other one I had? It was called Miracle in East Texas. Wonderful movie, true story, set in 1930, about the largest oil find in the history of the world in the heart of Texas. Right during the Depression in 1930, and I was honored to be able to direct both of those movies. And also, you mentioned Let There Be Light, which I absolutely loved. My wife wrote that one. That was a big hit. That was in theaters for about. I got some out right now because I got a reminder I got to pick up some more. So it was Let There Be Light, which was a wonderful movie. I was very fortunate to direct this one as well. That was in theaters for about 4 months as well. So so just gonna keep on making them.
So on a last note, I'm sure you get many invites as a keynote speaker and interviews such as this.
I love what you're doing. I love the idea behind it. So let's make it happen. I got invited to come to Kenya this year as well to speak at about making faith-based movies, making films at a film school there, I guess.
So with this, we will be ending, and I would really love to thank you for the time taken to have this interview with me for Path to Purpose magazine, and would love to meet you in person someday.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your time. And Renee, I look forward to meeting you in person.
Thank you very much, and I really wish you success with all your projects ahead.
Take care.